What separates a seller who wins trust from one who wastes the meeting before it starts? In this episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, Kevin Lawson and Sean O'Shaughnessey break down why meeting preparation is one of the simplest and most overlooked drivers of sales success, from researching the prospect's business to showing up with a real point of view. They also show how tools like Google Alerts, AI, and structured research frameworks can tighten your prep without turning it into a time drain. If you want sharper sales conversations, stronger messaging, and a better way to create value before the first question is even asked, stay with us.
Have you ever shown up to a meeting where someone has spent the time to get to know you, you've accepted the meeting, and they show up and you can tell they are unprepared? They may not know what your role is, or they don't know the full extent of your product offering. They're just clearly not ready for the meeting, and you as a professional recognize it. That happened to me, and I was thinking, Sean and I should talk about this, how to be an effective salesperson for your prospects and customers by being organized and doing the simple things well is when I'm working with salespeople, I tell them this a lot. Let's do the simple things well that we know return success. This is that doing sales successful stuff. Let's do smart stuff. Let's do winning stuff. Being ready for a meeting is so simple, but it's often overlooked, and it's a huge opportunity to outshine your competition as a seller. Sean, always good to talk to you. Let's dig into meeting prep today.
I love this concept. I can remember back before the internet, or before the internet was popular, before it was good, before I think I had my first company email address, in fact. And we were going to a meeting with my boss. I was brand new with the company at the time. So this was my third job in my career. We were going to a meeting with the prospect, and in the shared office environment that we had, the Wall Street Journal. My boss, as he's walked into the office, picks up the Wall Street Journal, turns to, and I don't remember what page it is. There's a page in the Wall Street Journal, at least there used to be in the printed version, where it would actually list all of the companies that were discussed in that day's edition of the newspaper. He quickly turned to that page, looked at it, and saw that one of the companies that we were going to see that day in our sales calls, our joint sales calls all day, was on there. We both read the article. 4 hours later, we're at that company and we're talking to them, and we mentioned the article. The person we had talked to had never seen the article, didn't know the subject that was in the article. We knew more about what was happening at his company than he did at that instant. Now, later on that day, evidently, there was a big announcement that he heard about it as well. But he was so impressed that we knew his business and we knew what was going on about his company, that until the last day that I knew him, he always mentioned that I knew more about the company than he did and how impressed he was. Those simple things, literally 15 seconds looking at a list of company names on the Wall Street Journal, impressed him for the rest of my relationship with him. I think meeting prep is incredibly important. If you want to show that you actually care about somebody, and goes back to Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, you show interest in them and you show that you know something about them, and you ask them questions about their life. You ask intelligent questions because you've done the meeting prep.
Similar timeline story, but this conversation could go a lot of different ways. We know we're going to touch on AI as part of this. So for you out there in listener land, know that we're coming back to AI to talk about how to do this well in a modern sales environment. But also, let's talk about this from a perspective of you being ready to sell more effectively. The idea that having your ducks in a row, not your squirrels running wild, for a meeting prep is really important. Your ducks in a row means you know the business you're calling on, what they do, how they create value, how you can have your sales hypothesis, how you can create value for them, the people you're meeting, the other executives you might run into. One of my favorite stories was my very first enterprise deal. I created a lookbook. It was in the age of the internet, but it was way before anything modern as we would know it as a selling environment now. But I created a lookbook based on people's pictures, just so I knew who they were if I bumped into them in the hall, and I studied it. This was a prospect deal. This was one of those deals that would have made half my quota for the year. So when we're thinking about prospecting, we want to know who we're going into, we need to know how many locations they have. If you're calling on a manufacturing plant, do you know that they have 5 others across the state, region, globe, country? Know your prospect. The reason that's important is because you need to know how big the deal is, or you need to know how big their influence is as a contact at a prospect. That's important for prospecting. Now, as sellers, we can get too wrapped around the axle and spend eons of time researching. This is where AI would come in, but we'll get to that. So hang on, edge of your seat moment here. We'll get to AI in a minute. For prospecting, we've got to know when to say when. We've got to do enough research to be dangerous, like the 15 seconds you mentioned, Sean, on the Wall Street Journal. Lots of clipper services now that can help you be effective. This is why we have an ICP. This is why we have a persona. This is why we have a value proposition for our business. If you haven't got those things documented, notice I didn't say in your head, documented, go back and listen to some of our past episodes or join the B2B Sales Lab where we can work that out with you. That's a really important thing to have to be effective with your meeting prep. So as you're prepping for your prospect, you know how well of a prospect they are. Do they fit in your deal box? What's currently going on? Are they hiring? Are they hiring for the solution you're selling or the service you're selling? What is the thing that's happened in the 8K, 10K reporting, quarterly or annual reporting for strategy and past performance? If they're private, where are they members? What makes us a value provider, value creator for them? All of these things help you as a seller be more informed about your customer. And if you're selling something that even resembles a commodity, how are you creating differentiation between you as a commodity seller and your competition who's got the same commodity? This is where that work is done. Now, that's just on the prospecting side. Let's think about your customer side. How do you prepare for the weekly or bi-monthly check-in or QBR for meeting prep? You don't just come in and say, hey, how's business going this quarter? Having not looked to find or researched to find what is actually going on in their industry. If you're looking for a framework, having never done this before, if this is your maiden sales voyage, look up the term PESTLE. Think acronym, PESTEL. That's just a framework. It's one of many frameworks. You can also do a SWOT analysis or a SWOC analysis or a SWO. There's all kinds of analytical frameworks you can use to analyze the environment in which your customer is operating. If you're bringing them value, hey, I noticed that I'm in technology, but you've got this environmental legislation issue coming up, which is the E for environmental and L for legal or legislation. You've got these two organizational or ecosystem impactful things coming at your business. And this is how we can help you think through solving that. This is how we're creating value with our customers, making ourselves more sticky. Now, Sean, I talked about a lot of why here, and I know you're passionate about AI. So let's tie the why and the AI together.
So I'm going to do one non-AI thing first. I'm going to give you a tool that you can use that's incredibly simple. It's been around for quite some time. It's actually the same philosophy of that Wall Street Journal article or that Wall Street Journal matrix that I talked about earlier. And that is Google Alerts. Google Alerts been around for quite some time. You may or may not be familiar with it. Just go to Google Alerts, search that on your browser. You can set up an alert to come to your inbox every morning that tracks all of the companies that you are prospecting to that month or that quarter. So you set one up for that. That's a great thing. If you are regionally based, let's say your territory is a state. Let's say your territory is a city. Definitely if your territory is a city, you can set up alerts on what's going on in the city, politics, universities, sports teams, whatever, so that you're conversant when you're talking to your prospect about what's going on in their world. And you have common things. And when they talk about so-and-so, what high school beat that other high school in basketball the night before, and you go, huh, what's basketball? That's not a good sign. So just be conversant on what's going on. Now, those are tried and true, been around for at least 10 years for Google Alerts, probably longer than that. Let's talk about AI. The great thing about AI is you literally can set up in any of the AI systems ways to save your prompts. It doesn't matter which tool you use. If you use ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, all of them have some way of saving your prompts. The same thing can happen You can have it do some research if your tool is set up to allow it access to the internet. You can have it do some research on the company, on the industry every morning before you walk in. You can also do that really famous acronym PESTLE that Kevin was just talking about. You can just tell it PESTLE. Believe me, ChatGPT knows what PESTLE means. You can say, give me the PESTLE that would be for this industry or for this customer before you walk in. And it's going to give it to you. Now, or if you're not walking in, if you're making phone calls, then you can do it on the industry. You can still do it on the same thing. You probably want to go faster and smaller if you're just making phone calls, because you're going to go one phone call after the other. But there are some really easy tools that, and I hate to be the old guy with gray hair that's talking about back before the internet, but it took us a lot longer back then. Now, there's almost no excuse that you can't figure out what's going on. And I'm going to give you another case study. And I actually made fun of this case study on B2B Sales Lab. By the way, if you've never heard of B2B Sales Lab, just go to b-sales-lab.com and check us out. It's a great place where salespeople help other salespeople, sales leaders help sales leaders just get better, just improve their skills. But I talked about this particular case study on B2B Sales Lab because I received an email, and the name of my company, just so you know, is New Sales Expert. And this email said that if I would just do one thing, that my sales would quadruple. And I looked at it and I was like, really? I just have to do one thing? One thing only? Now, if you listen to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales for any length of time, we never talk about one thing going to make your sales quadruple. That just doesn't ever happen. The worst part about it was when I went to that company's site, they didn't do that one thing. It wasn't even on their site. So once again, know your audience, figure it out in advance. There is no excuse that you don't know today's announcement about your prospect when you walk in the door or pick up the phone to contact that prospect. No excuse anymore. And the person that you're competing with didn't do it. So take advantage of that mistake. Kevin, give them some other ideas. Let's take this home. Give them some motivation as we close out the episode.
Good stuff. Because part of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales is action. What are we going to get done before lunch tomorrow? So we're dropping this episode at Tuesday at 4:30, just like every Tuesday at 4:30. So you may be getting this on your commute home or your commute into work on Wednesday morning. So before lunch, I want you to go into your calendar and flag all of your prospect meetings or your prospecting time blocks. Make the agenda for that the first 15 minutes of your day to research your prospects. Use tools like what Sean said with the clipping service. Flag somebody. If you've got an enterprise deal, if you got account-based marketing, if you got named accounts, this is what you do to get ready to hit your quota for the year more than your competition. Google Alerts. There are tons of add-ins, things like Warmly, warmly.ai. That's just an add-in where you can create a name tag for yourself. But what that tool does, this is not an advertisement for Warmly, but what that tool does is it goes and researches prospects that you're meeting with for your meetings. Hugely valuable, huge time saver. Instead of having to go search and find out if XYZ, if Mike Smith is the Mike Smith from company 1, 2, 3, or 4, because you have the Mike Smith email address in the invite. It will do that kind of research for you. You got all the large language models. I want to pause and remind you, if it's not a paid subscription and if it's not a private use, you're sharing all that with the world. So be aware of the tools you're using on the AI front, but also be aware that there are tons of other tools out there that are useful for research, are useful for time management. The most useful of them all can be the sales playbook that you have inside your organization to make sure you have all of your ICP, persona, and value proposition documented. I'm going to pause on that for a minute. Do the simple things. Document your who and your why and your value. Go out to the market and figure out who fits best, and research some of your own AI tools. We can suggest AI tools as the day is long, but the problem in doing that is probably by next year, they're going to be irrelevant. So be current with your research as well. Right now, things like lead IQ are important. There's a few like Apollo or Outreach. 5 months ago, 6 months ago, my list would have been different. So that's just, again, a call to action for you as listeners. Be current with your research, be current with the commercially available products so that you can serve your prospects and customers well. And we're right here at 15 minutes, so we're going to serve you well by sticking to our 15-minute commitment because we think that you're getting this on your commute. If you want to dive deeper or get into the weeds on solving one of your specific problems, join us on the Sales Lab, b2b-sales-lab.com, where we carve out specific office hours times to do some of this unpacking of your specific problems, and we can get into the brass tacks of how do we solve your problem and how do we make you a more effective seller. But until next week, happy selling.
Kevin and Sean did a strong job of showing that meeting prep is not busy work. It is one of the clearest ways to create differentiation before the conversation even starts. One point that really stood out was the use of frameworks like PESTEL to prepare for a customer conversation, because it gives a seller a disciplined way to understand the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal pressures shaping the buyer's world. That matters because when you walk into a meeting able to connect your solution to forces already affecting the customer's business, you move from vendor talk to value creation. The big move to take from this episode is simple. Go into your calendar, identify your upcoming prospect meetings and prospecting blocks, and reserve the first 15 minutes for focused research. That small habit sharpens your questions, improves your messaging, and helps you show up with a credible point of view instead of generic sales talk. Do it today, before the noise of the week takes over, because most good intentions in sales die in the gap between hearing an idea and scheduling the action. If you need help with sales, sales management, or simply growing your company, reach out to Sean or Kevin using the contact information in the show notes. And if you want a place where salespeople and sales leaders help each other solve problems, get answers, and access resources that support quota attainment, join the B2B Sales Lab. You'll find the B2B Sales Lab link waiting for you in the show notes, and we'll be back in your feed again next Tuesday afternoon Eastern. Happy selling!